Hello, everyone. My name is Dominique Harris, and this is my older adult oral video presentation for Social Work 501 at Widener University. I had the wonderful opportunity to be able to interview my grandfather. His name is Morgan Harris. He is currently 90 years old. However, he'll be 91 in just a couple weeks. He was born in Atlanta, Georgia. He has 5 children, 13 grandchildren, 19 great-grandchildren, and 3 great-great-grandchildren. So a pretty big family. Erik Erikson developed this theory of psychosocial development in which he generated 8 stages of development in which a person progresses throughout life. When conducting this interview, Morgan definitely zoned in into a specific time in his life that I guess was most meaningful to him. He really spent a lot of time discussing this, which is stage 7, generativity versus stagnation, which is said to be achieved once you reach adulthood. And this is just the notion that generativity, meaning that you are no longer thinking about yourself. You are focused on those around you and investing in future generations. So most commonly, parents, grandparents, those in a parental role to be able to invest in children. Not to say that if you are not in a role of a caregiver that you're automatically in stagnation. It's just most commonly seen with parents just passing down what they know to their children. So some experiences that Morgan had in his adulthood was he served in the military, and actually when he served in the military, this is back in the 1920s, so things were obviously a lot different. He began when he was 16 years old, so he served from 16 years old to 19 years old. And he wasn't, although he was not fighting, he did a lot of manual labor. He, right after coming out of the military, he became a husband. He married my grandmother, who they remained married for 55 years until she passed away. He also became a father to 5 living children, two whom passed away. They were twins. They came after the first child was born. His wife got pregnant with the twins. They did not survive the pregnancy. And after that, they then went on and had their 4 other children. He was invested in working to support his family. There were obstacles that came along with that, but he was very motivated and focused on his family and ensuring that he provided for them. And one of my articles was really speaking about the concept of generativity, and a quote that I pulled from there was, "What happens in early childhood resonates throughout one's life in ways implicit and explicit, and has crucial roles to play in how generative people are, whether they are parents or not." And I found that to be very true with my grandfather, because I believe his generativity, where he began no longer being focused on himself and thinking about the bigger picture and giving back and just thinking about the future generations, was when he was 16 years old when he entered the service. So I believe that is what initiated it. That's what started it. And it kind of helped propel him to continue that once he did become a father. So the other part of generativity in Erikson's psychosocial development in this stage is stagnation. And this is just a place of comfort and security above challenge and sacrifice. This individual is self-absorbed, self-centered, just the idea that the world revolves around me. They do lack creativity, and just don't really have a regard of anybody else but themselves. They're not interested in the young people. Some challenges that Morgan faced, although he did not identify them as challenges. Throughout this interview, I will say I was astounded, to say the least, at his perception of things, and how he really saw them, and it was just really humbling. However, some challenges that did occur were segregation was an issue. A little bit more when he lived down south. When his wife got pregnant, they did move up north, and that's where the last 4 of his children were born. However, there was still segregation that was taking place. He had health concerns. However, due to the state, he didn't have health insurance or any means to be able to take care of those health concerns that he started to develop. And due to going into the service at 16, there was a lack of education. Once he got out, he jumped, right into marriage, family, kids, and just working. So there was no going back to school. And all of this just made it difficult for him to maintain employment. Although he did everything that he had to do to ensure that he kept a job and continued to provide for his family, it did come at the cost of just going from job to job. His accomplishments definitely are raising a family, and as I said, his perception in view of his situation. I don't think there could possibly be a more positive person who did not view too many of certain situations as a crisis. He dealt with it the best way he knew how. I think a lot of that definitely has to do with him not being a very emotional person. But again, the perception of his life and his views was amazing. So just focusing on that maintaining employment, it was difficult, but it was necessary to support his family. He lit up once he began talking about his family. When he spoke about his wife getting pregnant and having their first child, which was their only boy, not only was it the firstborn child, and it was a boy, but the child was born on Morgan's birthday. They gave him, they made him a junior and gave him Morgan's name. So when asked just like, how that experience was for you, he put, I felt proud. I took that boy everywhere I went. So he instantly just jumped into that role of father, protector, role model, everything that encompasses what a good father should be. Segregation definitely played, a huge role in it being difficult for him to maintain employment. Segregation is contributed to everything: ethnicity, culture, social class, education. He was a black man trying to make a living for himself, to provide for his family during a time where he was viewed as less than and he didn't have rights. So even if he would have, pursued an education or wanted to pursue an education, would he have been allowed to, would have been a question. And, what kind of education would it have been? So it really held him, it really held him back. He definitely humbled himself and was able to take on any job that came his way. And that also, he got paid less. So this sense of social class, he didn't really, wasn't even considered to have been in a social class. And one of the articles that I had found definitely just got me thinking. It was through speaking about generativity in relation to race, and found that African American adults showed significantly higher levels of generativity compared to white adults. And when speaking about segregation, it kind of made me wonder if this was the reason why, because reading that was a little bit of a shocker for me, and was trying to think like, well, why, would there be such a significant difference between the two as far as race, and made me think if segregation and even back before that of slavery, if that really honed in on African Americans and how their sense of self was so much different, and it was really embedded in them early on in wanting to care for others and not think about themselves. So other factors when it came to maintaining employment was his family being predominantly men. He did what he saw, what he knew to do. He saw that and knew that from his father and his uncles and his brothers. The man is the provider. The man works. If you are not a working man, you are not a man. So that was a learned behavior. He did not have health insurance, so he did begin to develop some health issues. Again, during the military, even though he was young, he was doing manual labor, a lot of stocking and loading of ships, and then his jobs of working on a farm. I just thought it was just a cute thing that he, in Florida, he picked oranges. And then when when him and his family moved up north, he worked in New York where he picked apples.